rock that music.
Avatar: The Last Airbender feels like it's the weirdest show for me to talk about on this channel because it's a show that I never really talked about and referenced in any sort of way, and if I did, I might have mentioned it as like a one-off thing at the end of one of my videos in the past and just said like, oh yeah, I'm watching it and blah blah blah. But it was a few months back when I started to watch it, and I watched the entirety of the first book or the first season, and then went to the next one, watched half of that, and then I took like this massive long like break from watching the show at all, just because I just got really lazy and I was procrastinating and I got distracted by a whole bunch of other stuff. But I figure because of the whole coronavirus thing and kind of not really wanting to get involved with politics revolving around the real life situation, what's going on with the Black Lives Matter movement, which I may or may not talk about. I was debating whether or not to really make a video and talk about it regardless, but maybe I'll do it anyways. I was just like, you know what, why not? Let's finish Avatar and then get into start to watch a couple of other shows that I've been wanting to watch, like Cowboy Bebop, which has been numerously recommended to me by my friends. They were just like, go ahead and watch it, but then I have, you know, one of my best friends, Marco, saying, finish Avatar, or watch Avatar, or this and that, and blah blah blah. And I finally decided to just get around to finishing Avatar, just to say that I watched the whole thing. And it's kind of hard for me to really talk about it, because each and every single episode kind of feels like it's its own story in some sense, unless it's like a multiple part episodic thing. But overall, of course, like the story has one coherent narrative from start to finish. It's not like that isn't the case, but there are certain episodes that really feel like the characters are going through their own journeys, and it's hard for me to kind of explain the case of that. But ultimately, if I was to really just say the great things about the show, I think the action is really, really great, and I think the uniqueness with the, you know, the bending of the elements is super cool. It's kind of reminiscent of Naruto in a sense, because some of the main elements that are used with Naruto are kind of similar to in Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I thought it was cool. And the action scenes that they would use is super cool. The CGI at times when they would use it, it's more of a product of the time of what they were allowed to use, because as it was airing in the mid-2000s, I imagine it was doing well because it was still able to continue on and end up finishing, and it grew into a cult following show that people love to talk about after it was finished. But it's a wonder of what their budget was in order to be able to use the CGI, because when you look at it, it's not that it looks bad. They actually make it look not horrible, but it also doesn't look like it's aged that well. But even like back in the mid-2000s, I can imagine for a lot of people it actually wasn't amazing, but it wasn't bad. You know, they actually use it very sparingly, and they don't ever use it for actual action stuff. They actually mainly use it for, like, you know, big boy stuff that has a lot of moving parts, like the giant airships that the Fire Nation would use, the tanks that it would use, and then that massive drill that is supposed to go into the wall, Ba Sing Se. It's like the big boy stuff that they use CGI on. Most of the time they're using, you know, typical hand animated stuff for like the action and the bending and stuff, which makes it look really super cool whenever they are doing stuff. But the two strongest things I really felt like were the main focus and the main driving force of the show is the journey and the characters. Those are easily the strongest aspects of the show. You're watching the characters learn lessons and evolve as they progress further in their journey, for Aang to learn how to master the four main elements and end up becoming, well, pretty much the Avatar. You know, or what the definition of the Avatar is. You know, they are an all-powerful being that are able to use the four key elements in their own way, and just they go out their whole journey and they learn a whole bunch of lessons, and the lessons that they learn shapes them into who they're going to be by the end of the series. And one of my favorite character arcs in the show is actually Zuko. I think Zuko's vast character difference between the first book and the third book, the first season, the third season, uh, the vast difference of what Zuko is like by then is drastically different, because in the first book he's absolutely obsessed with, trying to get Aang, trying to get the Avatar so that he's able to return back to his father, the Fire Lord Ozai, and return back to the Fire Nation, because he thinks he's going to get back the honor that he had lost but after he was banished from the Fire Nation. In the second book, you see a lot of him being really conflicted about his emotions. He doesn't know if he wants to stay loyal to the Fire Nation or be counted as a traitor because of Azula, his sister, and how she's pretty much the child that the Fire Lord pretty much wanted out of Zuko. And it's really weird to kind of see him go through these, tribulations and kind of be conflicted, and he doesn't really know what he wants to do. And in the third book, when they think that Aang had died, he ends up going back to the Fire Nation. He pretty much gets everything exactly like the way that he wanted, but he's still more angry. And if anything, he actually said it says it in an episode. He's mainly angry at himself because he's still confused. He's still conflicted. He still doesn't know what he wants to do. But then eventually he learns of the whole master plan that the Fire Lord wanted to do, and he's like, nah, fuck that. I don't want to do that. And so he decides to team up with Aang and the others. And then the episodes proceeding after he ends up joining their group is basically him just having, a journey, or not really a journey, but an adventure with our main three characters, Aang, Katara, and Sokka. And he's basically trying to gain their bond and their trust. And it's something that he would never have done before in the first season. The fact that he does it by pretty much the midpoint of the third season, where he regains his firepower and of being a firebender, and the true spirit of being a firebender, and gaining the trust of those that he had been fighting for the longest of time. It's a stark contrast, and it's a good character journey, and I really enjoyed watching that from Zuko. But then, of course, the other characters go through their own, tribes and tribulations as well. And it's great to see them go through the stuff that they go through. Like Aang, he's the Avatar. He's meant to save the world and stop the Fire Lord. But the whole time, he's still kind of got the mind of a kid. He's still acting like a kid. And he's still technically 12 years old from what little research about his age I looked up. Because I was like, wow, it's really fucking weird to watch these kids, like, making out and shit. But you know what? Whatever. It was really interesting to see Aang, because he's like not really wanting to be the Avatar, but eventually he has to take up that responsibility that's been laid upon him. He didn't choose it, but he has to stick by it. And to see him go through this journey of trying to learn how to water bend, to earth bend, and then to fire bend, and the different times that he's actually tried to do fire bending, he actually becomes more afraid of it. But by the third season, he ends up respecting fire bending and sees it in a different light. And then of course he starts using that in his combat, especially against the Fire Lord. And just to see Aang go through this entire journey, and to go back on the other point, the journey of these characters go through. To see them go and be these relatable characters and go through these relatable situations and learn these lessons that shape them up to who they end up becoming, by, I guess, The Legend of Korra, which I don't really plan on watching soon, but maybe I will have to eventually, just because. But, just the world, the bending, the story, the overall story was just something that was not really done in the mid-2000s, and if it was done very sparingly, especially on American Children's Cartoon Network. Not Cartoon Network, the television station, but just a network for children's cartoon. That wasn't really something they did back on Nickelodeon, because this was airing on Nickelodeon in the mid-2000s. It was something that really impressed me, that was something that was capable of being done during that time, after I was finally watching it, because this was a show that was airing as I was growing up as a kid, and I never watched it at any point during or after it was airing and it was finished. It just never crossed my mind when I saw it on the TV of like, yeah, I'm gonna watch this because why not. It just never came to my mind, and I was never really into it when I was growing up, when I was a kid. But with hindsight and with people always countlessly recommending it and saying like, "Oh, you have to watch Avatar," and then of course when they fucking recently added it onto goddamn Netflix, people were freaking out about it, and I was like, man, like I got halfway through the show and I never finished it. So I finally finished it. I finally got to see, you know, how the show officially ends, and the ending is definitely gonna stick with me for quite a little bit now because the ending was just not what I was expecting. And for those who haven't seen it, obviously, I don't want to say what it is because I kind of want to keep this as spoiler free as possible, and it's just me kind of discussing the show. But it impressed me. The main thing about it is that the show definitely impressed me in many ways, and it surprised me of what they were capable of doing in the mid 2000s, and the fact that Nickelodeon was like, yeah, let's air this on our, you know, children's network station. And I think the lessons that the characters learn, especially when they're, you know, kids going into their adolescent years, I think these are good lessons for them that are probably going to stick by them forever. And for people who did watch this growing up and as it was airing, those lessons that learned probably stick by you, and that's probably the reason why you have so many fond memories of this, is because it shaped you on who you were going to become in the future, just as those lessons that they learned end up shaping on who they became. So as they progressed as an individual, you also learn on how to you wanted to be as an individual. And I think this is a great, you know, show for kids to watch. It does make me feel really weird when I see these kids like fucking making out and shit when Aang is like 12 to 13 years old and Katara is like 2 years older than him or some shit. And just like, I get it, it's like they're kids and they're going in their adolescent years, and that's like something that they're going to go through, and these type of emotions that they're doing or they're going through is obviously going to happen. But it's still really weird for me to see that. But other than that, that's kind of just like a really minor nitpick, and it doesn't really matter, and it shouldn't really bother you really. But you know, the characters are amazing, the action's amazing, the overall like world building that they do for the show is fantastic, and the villains were definitely amazing, especially the fucking Fire Lord. The goddamn Fire Lord is voiced by Mark Hamill, the same guy who played Luke Skywalker in Star Wars and is the voice of the goddamn Joker. That's fantastic. I don't even know how they got him to voice him, but thank God he did, because he really adds more onto the character of the Fire Lord. And the way that they actually also handled the Fire Lord throughout the entirety of the show was pretty goddamn amazing, and I really enjoyed that. But yeah, Avatar was a weird thing for me to start off, because I was really confused on how to really feel about it as I was watching it. But I know its strengths and I know its weaknesses, but it doesn't really feel like there are really too many things bad about it. If I would have to really think about it, and even then, I feel like I would have to nitpick the show like quite a bit. But nah, the show is great, and I think it's great TV for kids to watch. And I think if you're a parent and you're watching it, I think it's a great show for your kid to watch, because it teaches a lot of good lessons, and these characters are likable, and I think it'll shape them to becoming better human beings. I think it'll shape them to being better people, which, end of the day, as a parent, isn't that something that you should be wanting from your child? I don't really know why I'm bringing it up. It's just, that's what I was thinking as I was, you know, after the show had finished and I was done watching it. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is a really good show for pretty much all ages to really watch. It's really good, and the ending will stick by you. It'll stick in your mind for a long time after you're done watching it. But as like a kids TV show, I think, you know, it has lots of good action for kids to watch and really enjoy, but it also teaches a lot of really good lessons and has a great story for them to watch. And I think if you are a kid, or even just no matter what age you are, if you are thinking about watching this, I think this is a great show to watch. I highly recommend it. I don't really have anything bad to really say about it. The comedy's great, the action's great, the story's great, the character's great, the world building is fantastic. Everything's great about the show. I don't really have anything really bad to say about it, besides maybe a few nitpicks, but I can't really think of any off the top of my head. So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the video. I think I took enough of your time already. Yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like, and if you aren't new, subscribe for more videos just like this. If you want to, you know, let me know what your thoughts on the show are in the comments, whether or not you just started it, whether or not you're halfway through it, whether or not you've already seen it, and what your thoughts are about it now. If you went ahead and started rewatching it, let me know in the comments. I'm actually really curious. This was a great show. Highly recommend it. I'm really happy that I finally watched it. I think I'm finally gonna go watch Cowboy Bebop, by the way. So, whenever I'm done with that, I'll probably make a video on that too. So yeah, I'll see you guys next one. I'm out. Peace.